Hi rock fans, welcome to another Relive the Music video, and today's focus is all about the year 2005. So coming up a wee bit later on in this video, on the album releases I'll be talking about this one, Bullet for My Valentine with The Poison. And when I get to the gigs, and there's 18 of them and a festival, I'll be talking about a super band made up of ex-Guns N' Roses members, which is Velvet Revolver. But to set the scene, I'll go through some of the news from that year, some of the TV and film that was out, the top 3 songs in the UK charts, then I'll go over some of the album releases, some of the ones that stand out for me, and then I'll go through all the gigs that I went to. So my name is Ricky, and welcome to my channel, Relive the Music. Okay, I just want to start by saying a big thank you to all the current channel subscribers and all my friends and family who watch my videos. It means a lot to me. And also to those top channel contributors, the ones that comment the most on my videos. So that's Ian C666, Good Guy Chucky, City Build Minecraft and Glasgow Harley Rider. And also a special mention this week to Stephen Blake, who left a comment. So I'm giving you a mention. So if you don't know, Stephen actually dresses up as the Eddie mascot for Made in Scotland, and he's the one that nearly gave me a heart attack when they played the Bungalow a few months ago, when he came up as the Eddie dressed as a trooper with a sword behind me. I got such a fright because he recognised me from the videos. So this has obviously got its drawbacks, because I don't know what any of you look like, but you obviously know my face. Which, by the way, if I'm out and about at a gig and you see me, just come up and have a word. It'd be nice to say hello. But anyway, if you want a mention in any of the future Relive the Music videos, then just drop a comment below and I will give you a mention, and I'll give you a graphic to go along with it. Okay, so now to the news. So Hurricane Katrina devastated large parts of New Orleans, claiming 1,400 lives and costing an estimated $125 billion worth of damage. Pope John Paul II died, and it's thought that 4 million people travelled to the Vatican City to pay their respects. Pope Benedict XVI succeeded him. Continuing with the sad news, this was also the year of the London bombings on the 7th of July, or 7/7 as it would be known. So this was a series of 4 coordinated suicide attacks carried out by Islamist terrorists that targeted commuters travelling in London's public transport during the morning rush hour. There were 3 bombs detonated in London undergrounds and 1 in a double-decker bus. There was 56 people lost their lives as a result of this, and 784 injured. The Microsoft Xbox 360 home video game console was launched, and this was the main competition for the Nintendo Wii and for the PlayStation. I've got to say, I'm team PlayStation all the way here. I've got a PlayStation 5 at the moment. I just can't get used to the big chunky controller that's on the Xbox, so it's not for me. Okay, and ending on a more light-hearted note, this was also the year that the term sexting was first used in the publication of the Australian Sunday Telegraph, although it wasn't actually added to the dictionary until 2012. So the word obviously comes from mixing up sex and texting. So this is where you're sending raunchy images or messages for all you dick pic senders out there. Okay folks, just a reminder, it's Father's Day coming up in a couple of weeks, so if you're still to get a present or you're hoping to receive a present, then might I suggest one of these brilliant Funko Pop figures. That's the Somewhere in Time Eddie that I've got. Also, you can't go wrong with the earplugs. Keep your ears nice and safe at the concert. You couldn't even see that I had that in there. You don't see it, so don't worry about looking uncool. Also, other things such as a phone stand, which I use for work and for watching things. And if you're looking for something a bit more expensive, this watch is pretty good. I've used this for over a year. It looks pretty expensive. I recommend it. Okay, so now to the TV in 2005. So this would be the year when The Apprentice UK first aired on TV. And this was a game show where about over a dozen contestants competed each week to try and be the eventual winner and take home £100,000 prize and the help of Alan Sugar. So Alan Sugar was assisted by, it was Nick and Margaret at the time, and they would basically observe the candidates each week, and one person or one or more persons would be voted out each week until we get down to the final two, and then he would choose the winner out of them. So in this year it was Tim Campbell that won it, and he actually rejoined the show in 2022 as one of the aides. The Jeremy Kyle show first aired, and this ran all the way up until 2019 when it was axed. So it was on ITV, and during its prime this was actually their most popular daytime television show. So they would regularly get people on like that had broke up, and they would bring out the ex, and it was a bit like the Jerry Springer show, you know, they would get like confrontational people on it, and Jeremy Kyle was quite good at kind of winding them up, and you know, they were just, it was good. It was car crash television basically. I know a lot of people don't like Jeremy Kyle, but I actually think he's really good value, and I actually do watch him. He's now on Talk TV and YouTube. He's got a show at 4 o'clock, and I regularly watch him on that. The TV game show Deal or No Deal premiered, and this was hosted by Noel Edmonds. So this was whereby one person got the chance to win up to £100,000 in cash. So what they did was they basically chose a box at the start of the show. There was 22 boxes, 11 blue ones and 11 red ones, all with different predetermined cash values behind it. And then basically what they wanted to do was to try and get rid of all the low value boxes. And then once they'd picked 3 boxes, they would get an imaginary phone call to Noel Edmonds from the banker, giving them a cash offer, and then they could choose to accept that or carry on with the game and try and eliminate more boxes. So in my mind, this is basically like a 10-minute game show, and they drag it out for an hour, but it's still not bad to watch. Come Dine With Me first aired, and this is still going today. So this is a programme whereby there's like 4 or 5 people, and they all take turns cooking for each other, and you see the people all going to their house and nosing through things whilst the person's cooking dinner, and then they all sit down for a meal and ask questions, and they comment on what the dinner was like, and then they give a score for the meal and for the entertainment, and then whoever gets the most points at the end of the week, they get a cash prize. I think it's £1,000. But for me, the most entertaining thing about this is the voiceover guy, Dave Lamb. They have it edited so well that basically the contestants will say something, or he'll put a line in there, and then it'll just be the total opposite of what they said, and that makes it quite funny. Okay, so now to the movies of 2005. So the third most popular film this year was The Chronicles of Narnia, which was The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And this was an adaptation of a 1950 novel, and it took in $745 million worth at the box office. Okay, the second best-selling film by sales this year was Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And this was actually the 6th film in the Star Wars franchise, but the 3rd chronologically. So here we see the full transition of Anakin Skywalker over to the dark side and him becoming Darth Vader. And I thought this was really well done, and it bridged the gap nicely before the original Star Wars A New Hope, so you could see how Vader became Vader. Okay, and the most popular film of 2005 was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And this basically sees Harry return to his 4th year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and he needs to compete in an ancient wizard tournament. Okay, also honourable mentions to other films such as War of the Worlds, which starred Tom Cruise. And this was an adaptation of an 1898 novel written by H.G. Wells. And this was also the year that gave us the film Hostel, written and directed by Eli Roth. And it's thought that this was where the term torture porn was born, because they dragged out sequences for pleasure. I think for me the most sort of frightening thing about the Hostel sort of films and Saw is that basically this could happen. and no doubt probably does happen in some parts of the world. Okay, so now to the top 3 songs in the UK in 2005. So coming in at third place, selling 525,000 copies, was The Crazy Frog with Axel F. And this spent 4 weeks at number 1. And it was basically a remix of the Beverly Hills Cop theme tune. And The Crazy Frog was like a CGI animated cartoon frog who was meant to basically sound like a motorbike. That's why he made that wee noise like you've probably seen the video and have heard it before. Whether that impersonation's any good, I don't know. The second best selling song this year was That's My Goal by Shane Ward, who was a contestant on the X Factor, and he actually did write the song himself, unlike most of the other X Factor contestants. And this had sales of 875,000 and it was released just before Christmas, so it was a Christmas number 1 and it spent 4 weeks there. Okay, so the best selling song of 2005 was Is This the Way to Amarillo, and this was sung by Tony Christie featuring the comedian Peter Kay, and it sold 1.1 million copies and spent 7 weeks at number 1. So you've probably seen the video where Peter Kay's just walking by loads of people in hospital and supermarkets and on the road, and there's various celebrities and different things joining them, and they're all doing this stupid wee march dance like this. Right folks, so now to the rock and metal albums of 2005 and some of the ones that stand out to me. So first up is an absolute belter, and that is Bullet for My Valentine with The Poison. So this had 13 songs on it and lasted 53 minutes long. They also released 4 singles from it, and this is actually their most successful album to date. And obviously a lot of you might know that I was just at the 20th anniversary show earlier on in the year, and I did a review on it as well, so if you want to check out some footage from that, just look back on the channel. But yeah, this was a great album. Like from the moment the intro finishes and it kicks into Her Voice Resides, that's just pure mind blowing. It's just this big scream of Wah! And if you're listening to that in shuffle when that comes on, you're like, I still get a fright when that plays. So you've got that, and then you've got likes of Suffocating Under Words of Sorrow, 4 Words to Choke Upon, and then probably the most famous, Tears Don't Fall, which has got over 250 million plays on YouTube. So yeah, a cracking debut album. Okay folks, so after the last album, you probably guess where I'm going here. Yep, Trivium released Ascendancy, and this had 12 songs on it, lasting 55 minutes long. This was their second album, and there was 4 songs released as singles from it, and each had a video accompanying it. So there's some real belters on this. Again, similar to the Bullets album, this had like a minute long intro, and then it kicked into Rain, and I just love the way that opens up with like the douche dunnin. It's really good. It just pulls you right into it straight away. And then there's brilliant songs on it, such as Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation, Suffocating Sight, the title track Ascendancy, and Light to the Flies. And yeah, brilliant album, and listened to it a lot in the run up to the Poisoned Ascendancy tour, and still listen to it to this day. Okay, The Darkness released One Way Ticket to Hell and Back, and this was an album which had 10 tracks lasting 35 minutes long, and also gave us 4 singles. That seems to be the magic number. So I really enjoyed this album. You've got tracks such as Dinner Lady Arms, which is Carol's favourite Darkness song, and English Country Garden, Girlfriend, which is good, and he hits some like really high notes in that song. And obviously you've got the album track as well, One Way Ticket to Hell and Back, which is really good, and just typical sort of Darkness stuff, you know, Justin hitting those high notes and really catchy melodic choruses. Yeah, good album. System of a Down gave us 2 albums this year. The first one I'll talk about was called Mezmerize, and this had 11 tracks on it, lasting 36 minutes long. Some really good catchy songs in this. Again, a lot of them had lyrics that just didn't make any sense, but they were hilarious. So one of the more serious ones was BYOB, which is Bring Your Own Bombs, and that was a protest song about the Iraq War. But then you had the likes of Revenger, which was catchy, and also Radio Video stands out. That's the one that goes, I'm on the radio with Danny and Lisa. It takes me away from it all. And it goes into a sort of Greek Zorba's dance type tune, where it goes la 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 with Danny and Lisa. Another song which I like, which has just got a cracking opening the way it starts, was Cigaro. And it goes, it builds up and then it just hits out with a lyric, my cock is much bigger than yours. My cock can walk right through the door with a feeling so pure. It gets you coming back for more. Like, how did I make up these lyrics? Honestly, man. But yeah, a really good, enjoyable album. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I'm a big System of a Down fan. So yeah, I enjoyed that album. Okay, so the second System of a Down album was called Hypnotize, and this was 6 months after the release of Mezmerize. It had 12 songs on it, lasting 40 minutes, and the ones that were my favourites from it were Kill Rock and Roll, Lonely Day, and my most favourite was Vicinity of Obscenity. And it's just because the lyrics in it are so daft, and even Serge Tankian, the lead singer, when he was interviewed, had basically said it was just the first things that popped into his head, and it makes no sense. It's just a nonsensical phrase, and he didn't want to be serious, and it goes banana, 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 terracotta, banana, terracotta pie, and it repeats that in the chorus. It is silly, but it works. It's really good, really catchy. So this would turn out to be System of a Down's last album, unfortunately, but they would still go on and play concerts. Foo Fighters gave us In Your Honour, which was a double album. It had 20 songs on it, lasting 83 minutes, and the first disc basically comprised, electric guitar songs, and the second disc was all acoustic covers. So this produced couple of my favourite songs by the Foos, which were DOA and The Best of You. Welsh post-hardcore band A Funeral for a Friend gave us their second album called Hours, which had 11 songs on it and was 43 minutes long. Notable songs from it were Roses for the Dead and Streetcar, which had a mobile phone playing through it. And it go, I can't feel the same about you anymore, I can't feel the same about you anymore, I can't feel the same about you anymore. It just repeats that. And probably the favourite track for me is History on it, which is actually quite a slow ballady one. And it was a bit of a change in direction for them. But it was catchy again. The chorus was like, arches in your arches, raise your finger for one last salute. But yeah, it was a good album. Obviously, it was going to be difficult to follow up Casually Depressed and Deep in Conversation, but they did a not bad job. Feeder released the album Pushing the Senses, which was their 5th studio album, and it had 10 songs on it, lasting 40 minutes long, and the couple of standout tracks from it were Feeling a Moment and Pushing the Senses. Although this album, to be honest, there's quite a lot of slow ones on it, and it's not really one of my favourite albums. It's not as good as Echo Park and not as good as Comfort and Sound, their one before in 2002, in my opinion. Disturbed gave us their third album, 10,000 Fists, which had 14 songs on it, lasting 56 minutes, and it gave us some good songs such as 10,000 Fists, Stricken, and a really good cover of Land of Confusion, which was originally sung by Genesis. It's also their first album to really feature the guy, which is the mascot, on the album cover. So that's the kind of hooded cloak figure with the dark face and the scary grin and the dark eyes. Fall Out Boy gave us their second album, which is From Under the Cork Tree, and it's actually their most successful album to date, and it's sold over 7 million copies. It had 13 songs on it, lasting 43 minutes long, and it had songs such as A Little Less 16 Candles, A Little More Touch Me, also Sugar Bear Going Down, which is probably one of the first Fall Out Boy songs that I remember hearing. It was really catchy. And also Dance Dance for me stands out, and that's got a really good funny video with it when they're all trying to outdo each other on the dance floor, going like that. The last album I'll talk about for the year is the Marmite of the rock world, and that is Nickelback. Yes, that's the Canadian band that everybody loves or loves to hate, and they gave us their 5th studio album, For All the Right Reasons, which had 11 songs and was 41 minutes long, and it shifted over 11 million copies and spawned 7 singles from it. So this gave us some really good songs, in my opinion, because I'm a Nickelback fan and I've seen them, 4 or 5 times. So you had the slow one, Saving Me. You also had Animals and Photograph. Look at this photograph. Every time I do it makes me laugh. And probably most famous from that album is the song Rockstar, which has actually shifted 4.5 million copies in the US. Hey, hey, I wanna be a rock star. So, yeah, that's all the albums from this year. Right, folks, so now to the gigs of 2005, and first up, what a way to kick off the year. So this was the supergroup Velvet Revolver at the SECC. And basically, for those of you who maybe don't know, they consisted of Slash, Duff McKagan, Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses, Dave Kushner from Wasted Youth, and the former Stone Temple Pilots singer Scott Weiland on vocals. And I can't believe I missed this album out last year in 2004, but they released Contraband. That was their debut album, and it was really good, so myself and Andy were really excited to see Velvet Revolver play. So they were supported by, I think it was the Datsuns. I don't really recall seeing them or having heard of them since. We were really just there for Velvet Revolver. So they played 16 songs on the night. They played 11 from the Contraband album, which actually only has 13 songs on it, so they nearly played every song. And there was 5 covers. So there was 2 Stone Temple Pilots covers in there. And then from Guns N' Roses, you had It's So Easy, Mr. Brownstone, and Used to Love Her. So they opened up the night with Sucker Chain Blues, and they closed on Slither, and also sort of sandwiched halfway in between one of my sort of favourite Velvet Revolver tracks, which was the ballad Falling to Pieces. And yeah, I mean, this was a really good gig. It was great seeing them. We weren't close. I remember me and Andy, we were quite far back in the SECC. It's just a long hall, and obviously there's no sort of footage from it. But yeah, it was great kind of seeing. This was like the closest, that we're kind of getting to Guns N' Roses, and having 3 of the former members. And obviously I hadn't seen Scott Weiland or Stone Temple Pilots before, so I thought he put on a really good show, and I think that he's a really good frontman, although he's like incredibly skinny. There's nothing to him, but maybe that's due to drug use. But anyway, yeah, it was a good night and a fantastic way to start the year. Next up for me was Killswitch Engage, and this was back at the QMU. There was quite a lot of gigs at that venue in these years, and it's a shame I've not really been back there since. It is a really good, nice wee venue. So I think they did about 10 songs, just looking at the set list, and standouts for me are always Rose of Sharon and The End of Heartache. So this was when Howard Jones was the singer, and I've not actually seen them live with Jesse Leach. He was the singer, I think, from 1999 until 2002, and then he rejoined. I'm not sure what year he rejoined, but Howard Jones is only up until 2012, so maybe it was just slightly after that. But yeah, good wee venue, and Killswitch Engage, they are that higher end of what I can tolerate in terms of like how do you say it, heavier music. But yeah, it's just kind of within my scope, and yeah, a good night seeing them. Okay, so still in January, and we have Taking Back Sunday at the Carlin Academy. This was on the Where You Wanna Be tour. I'll be completely honest, I don't really remember this gig at all, and I'm not really a band I've listened to in the last 15 years or so. I'm not sure whether this was Andy's choice to go and see this. The only sort of Taking Back Sunday song I can remember is the one called Make Damn Sure, but that wasn't out until 2006, or an album from 2006. So I don't know if it was maybe out as a single in 2005 and had heard that and maybe went to the gig as a result of listening to that. I don't really know, so I can't really add anything to this, and set list wise as well, I can't find anything, so sorry on this, guys, but I'm not going to just make stuff up just because I was there. Right folks, into February now, and we've got Megadeth at the Carlin Academy. And look at the size of this gig ticket, it's tiny. What's going on there? So this was on their Blackmail the Universe tour, which was supporting the latest album from the year before, The System Has Failed. And they did 20 songs covering 9 different albums. They had 7 from The System Has Failed. But yet again, for me, like, the standout songs from the shows are some of the older songs, such as Peace Sells. You had Skin in My Teeth and Symphony of Destruction. And probably my favourite one is Hangar 18, just the guitar work in that at the start of that is just amazing. Check that out if you've not heard it before. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think this is probably about the 5th time that I've seen Megadeth by this point, but I wouldn't consider myself like a huge fan. It's not a band that I turn to like month by month and listen to, but as I said, started going to gigs with Andy in the sort of last year or two, and I think this would have been the first time that he would have seen them. Okay, still in February, and this was a Friday night, so it made it even more special, was Bullet For My Valentine. And check that out if you can see it. The price of it was just £7. £7 for a ticket, eh? You don't get that these days. You don't even get a beer for £7. Anyway, this was at a wee venue called The Barfly, and I'd never been there before, and I didn't go there again. So this was a chain of venues all over the UK, and it opened its doors in 2002 and actually closed them in 2009. So there's been quite a lot of memorable acts over the years performed in this venue, such as the Kooks, Arctic Monkeys, Franz Ferdinand, Kings of Leon and Biffy Clyro, and many others. But anyway, we were here for the Bullets. So obviously, the couple of times that I saw them at the end of 2004, they were actually third support, or like on first, but the third band in the bill, if you know what I mean. So this was a chance to see them outright on their own, headlining. I say headlining, hand on heart, I can't remember if there was somebody on before them. I just remember the Barfly being quite a small venue, and obviously the songs that they were playing would have been what formed the Poison album, which was coming out later on that year. So yeah, I remember it just been excited again, having heard the Bullets twice previously. So no doubt it was songs such as Hand of Blood, Suffocating Under Words of Sorrow, All That Hate Revolves Around Her, Tears Don't Fall, and basically all the songs on the Poison. And pretty sure Just Another Star was in there. I know that's not on like the original press of the Poison album, but it was on the wee EP that I got. Yeah, so just after seeing Bullets, or it might have been before this gig, I had managed to pick up this small CD which had just 5 songs on it. So it was Hand of Blood, Cries in Vain, Curses, No Control, and my favourite, which I think the first stood out to me when I heard them, was Just Another Star. I know it's kind of mental because Matt's not really the lead vocals on that, but I don't know, it was just the kind of shouty shouty lyrics on it just drew my attention to it and fell in love with it. So yeah, that was good to see them, and it just reinforced our opinion that we thought that they were definitely a band to watch out for, and we would see them again. Okay, next up was American Head Charge, and this was at King Tut's Wawa Hut, and it was £8 entry. So this was about the second time I think that I'd saw American Head Charge. So this was on the Feeding tour, and they played 6 songs from that album and 7 from The War of Art. I think they did 14 tracks in total on the night, and the standout song for me from them is the single Just So You Know, which I'm sure some of you, if you don't know it, if I played it to you, you'd probably recognise it. I think that's my favourite track by them. Okay, into April, and I saw 36 Crazy Fists again. So myself and Andy had actually just seen them 6 months ago in October 2004, and that was the first time that Every Time I Die was supporting them, and Bullets as well. So this was still obviously on the tour promoting A Snow-Capped Romance, so they were playing songs such as At the End of August. Okay, still in April, this time we're off to the garage to see Atreyu, and this was on the Thick as Thieves tour. So there was like 2 or 3 other bands actually supporting them, so they actually only did about 11 songs, and this was split between the 2 albums. The Curse, I think they played 6 from that, and 5 from Suicide Note and Butterfly Kisses. So favourites from that were Right Side of the Bed, which was the first song I'd heard by Atreyu, and then the sort of the Remembrance Ballad, and The Crimson. I think they also did Bleeding Mascara from it as well. Okay, into May, and we're back at the QMU, Queen Margaret Union venue. I did say there was a lot of gigs around about this time. Maybe they weren't charging a lot to hire the venue out or something. Anyway, I'll be completely honest, like I did with one of the earlier ones, I don't remember a lot about this gig. So obviously 2 bands at it. I don't know if they were maybe Andy's choice. They're not even really bands that I've listened to probably in the last 15 or 20 years, so I'm not going to pretend that I remember much about it or any of the songs that they possibly did when I don't. Okay, so into June, and Andy and I's first ever download festival. Pretty smart ticket as well, I think. So this was £105 for the 3 days, or well 4 days it was, because we went down the day before and we camped. So I'm not going to get into too much detail about the actual festival itself, because to be honest this would make the video well over an hour long. So I maybe do a deep dive where I'll go into the bands that I saw in a wee bit more granular detail. So I'm just going to sort of gloss over who I saw and who the headliners were. So on the Friday, we saw bands such as Wednesday 13, Megadeth, Biffy Clyro, so Andy tells me, I don't really remember that, Garbage, and the headliners were Feeder. So obviously, if you've watched some other videos, you know I saw Feeder quite a lot in the last sort of couple of years running up to this. So they just had the Pushing the Senses album, and they did a kind of typical festival set list where they mixed up across all the different albums instead of just playing songs from this album. So they did 17 songs in total, played like Just the Way I'm Feeling, Come Back Around, and the last couple of songs were Buck Rogers and Just a Day. So it was pretty good because they weren't the sort of most popular choice, shall we say, because this was back in the day when really download was aimed at rock and metal bands, and not any soft bands like nowadays, like Sleep Token. Just find a few people up there. Not a band for me, by the way. Tried listening to it, I don't get it. But anyway, so yeah, they did a good job. Although notably, like the crowd for them wasn't that big. I mean, me and Andy had been standing up or sitting down on our chairs up in the hillside throughout the day, and when feeder came on, we were able to get down pretty near the front. I'd say about maybe 30 yards from the front, just because there wasn't a lot of people keen to see them. And they were interviewed saying as much, saying, we felt pressure to win over the crowd, but being a feeder fan at that moment in time, I thought they did a good job, and it was probably the weakest out of the 3 nights, but yeah, it was a good show. Okay, now on to the second day of music, and first up for us was getting to see Trivium on the main stage. So this was actually a push for Trivium, because they were meant to be on the third stage, but the organisers of the festival moved them to the main stage and put them on first, and it went down well with the crowd. There was a lot of people into it, and there was a big crowd there for it, considering they were first on, so it'd have been about midday, I think, and they got to play 5 or 6 songs. So this was all from the Ascendancy album, which had just been released about 3 months earlier. So from memory, you had likes of Rain, Drowned and Torn Asunder, A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation, and Pull Hard on the Strings of Your Martyr. So yeah, a great way to start the day. So after them, we went and saw Bowling for Soup, and then we stayed in one of the tents. It was Bullet for My Valentine were on, so we caught them. That was really busy. It was in a sort of circular tent, I think, and it was busy. A lot of folk had gone to see them as well. And then we jumped back to the main stage. I think we caught some of Hymn's set. And then there was only 2 bands to come, so second last was probably the one that me and Andy were maybe looking forward to most, aside from Bullet. And that was Velvet Revolver again. So I actually managed to I've recorded their full set, and it'll be on the channel. I'll put links in the description to highlights of all the artists that are covered on this download. I've got quite a few songs by different bands. I think I've got Papa Roach's full set, I've got the full set of Velvet Revolver, and I've got Nightwish and some Slipknot in there. Leave a link to the playlist in the description, and you can go through and check it out. So anyway, yeah, it was great to see Velvet Revolver again, and great show that they put on. I can't remember, it was about 12 or 13 songs, but just the energy that Scott Weiland had on stage. I mean, you'll see that if you watch some of the footage. It's really good sound quality as well, and actually I think it looks pretty good considering it was 20 years old and I screen recorded it. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight for both of us, for me and Andy. Okay, so headlining the Saturday night was Black Sabbath, and they actually kind of renamed this day like Ozfest 2005 because it was Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath playing, and they did 13 songs. Now, I'm not a big Black Sabbath fan, and I've taken pelters from that before, but I'm going to say it how I see it or how I feel it. It's just not for me. I've listened to their stuff quite a few times, like Greatest Hits album and whatnot, and I don't know, it's just kind of dull and depressing for me. I get slated in a Facebook post before because somebody's like, if it wasn't for them there'd be no heavy metal, and like, fuck off mate, honestly. Like, if you don't like somebody, you don't like somebody. I just found the sound like a bit dull and depressing. I don't know if it's like the recording of the albums because it's so long ago, but I just found it quite downbeat. Like stuff like Iron Man, like the just not for me. A couple of the songs, obviously I'd heard Paranoid. I do quite like that one, and it's only 2.5 minutes long, so I can stomach that. And Children of the Grave is decent as well, I'll give you that. And obviously War Pigs, well, I'd actually first heard War Pigs just because Faith No More covered it, and they did a good cover version of it on the From Out of Nowhere album. was it? You know what I mean? The live one, the live at the Brixton Academy, I think it's maybe called. Anyway, they did 13 songs. I think me and Andy, I think we left after the 11th one, so they finished that on Paranoid, and then they went off and they did an encore ending in Children in the Grave. But to be honest, man, it was like 11:15. We'd been out all day drinking. It was really sunny on the Friday, and we were burnt. And the Saturday and Sunday, from memory, it was really cold. I actually get pictures in ponchos and big woolly hats and things like that, so we were freezing cold, so we just headed back to the tent. But I mean, lots of other people enjoyed it, but yeah, for me the highlight was Bullets and Velvet Revolver, but good to tick Black Sabbath off, I suppose. Okay, so now on to our last day at Download, which was the Sunday, and it was dry but really cold, again really windy, so we watched a lot of the bands up in the hillside on this day from memory. So I think first up on the main stage it was Papa Roach, and as I say, I've got, I think, their full set on the channel, so check that out. So that was good to obviously see them open up and do a lot of the songs that we knew and loved. So we also saw that day, we saw Killswitch Engage, we caught some of Slayer, and this was the first time I heard Nightwish. They were in the main stage quite early on, but disappointingly they were held up in traffic, so they were delayed in getting on. Like, they should have been on and they missed about 20 minutes of their set, which was annoying because they came on, I'd never heard them, and this was new. This was like, you know, operatic rock or symphonic rock, and I was like blown away. Just, I hadn't heard anything like this before, the kind of operatic voice with the rock music through it. And so we only got about 4 or 5 songs, and I don't know why they didn't put whoever was meant to be on it like after them, why they didn't put them on first if they knew that they were held up. So yeah, that was annoying, but good. So I do actually have one of the songs. I think Get Nemo on the playlist if you check that out. I'm not sure who was singing for Nightwish, because I know they've changed the female singer like a few different times, and I get mixed up with all the different Scandinavian names. So we also then had Slipknot. They were like second last on the bill, so they put on a good performance. Again, it was good to see all the different antics with the clown and all the different masks and stuff like that. So now to the headliner. So that was one of my favourite bands that I've talked about. I think I've gone over every album that they've had out, and that was System of a Down. So this was the second time for me seeing them, having saw them I think at Leeds in 2003 for the first time. So they played 23 songs, which was really good. They had 10 or 11 from Toxicity, which is pretty much the full album. Well, it can't be the full album because they didn't do Jet Pilot actually, so they must have done everything apart from Jet Pilot. They had 6 off of the Mezmerize album, which was the album released that year, and they had the likes of Revenger and Sigaro. Unfortunately, I didn't do Radio Video from that album, which is one of my favourites. But you also had the likes of Bring Your Own Bomb, Bounce, Chop Suey. I think they finished on Sugar as well, and other songs in there such as Science, etc. So yeah, really pleased. Really enjoy System of a Down's music, and it was great to see them again. So that was our first taste of the Download festival experience, and yeah, the next day we would pack up and head towards the bus back to Glasgow. Okay, so next up, 3 days after Download, unbelievably, guess who I'm seeing? And I've just talked about them, so this isn't deja vu. System of a Down at the SECC. So I'll not talk too much about it because I basically just covered it. This was just a kind of extended version of that. So pretty much a lot of the same songs. They did 27 songs in total, so they did a few more. Obviously, maybe got a slightly more time than they did on the festival slot. So yeah, great to see them again. I can't really add much more because we just saw them 3 days prior, but this time in home territory. I can't remember who the support was for them, but we were just there for System of a Down, so that being the 3rd time that I'd saw them now. Okay, next up, find myself at the Barrowlands for the first time this year, seeing Welsh Friends' Funeral for a Friend. And this was as part of their Hours tour promoting the album that was out that year. So most of the songs were taken from that album. They played the likes of Streetcar, Monsters, History, Roses for the Dead, and they didn't play too much from the Casually Depressed album. They had the likes of She Drove Me to Daytime Television, Red is the New Black, and Juno. And I think they did about 13 or 14 songs in total. I think they had Art of American Football and 10.45 Amsterdam Conversations in there as well. So this was quite a push for Funeral for a Friend. Obviously played some of the smaller venues prior to that, so they were obviously getting a wee bit of commercial playtime from some of the songs from the Hours album, and gained a wee bit of a following on the back of that. So yeah, good to see these guys again, and it wouldn't be long before we would see them again. Okay, now to a gig that wasn't my choice. And this was Jamiroquai. Is that how you say it? Not Jamiroquai. Jamiroquai. So this was a girlfriend that was seen at the time, Catherine. This was her choice, wanting to go and see this. And I just remember thinking, oof, £28.50, that's quite a lot of money, which it was back then. And yeah, it was the SECC, so not the best venue, but we were quite close. But I don't really remember any of the songs. They're not a band that I listened to. I was just there as support. The only one I really knew was the Space Cowboy song, This is the Return of the Space Cowboy. And that's it. And him, I don't even know what the singer's name is, but I can picture him. Like, he's a tiny wee guy, isn't he? And he's got this like stupid big hat, just like dancing about. I remember, is it the video for Space Cowboy or Virtual Insanity or something? It's like dancing about in a wee room with this stupid hat on. That's just the memories that I have from it, but yeah, totally forgettable. Okay, next up, another wee horrible small ticket was Avenged Sevenfold. Now, if you look there, it says Barrowlands on it. And I don't remember seeing them at the Barrowlands, so maybe somebody can help me out. I do remember seeing them at, what was the one in Sauchiehall Street that burnt down? Was it the O2 ABC, or might have been called something else, depending on who was sponsoring at the time? I definitely saw them there, and I remember thinking that the sound wasn't that good. Please tell me that I'm not making this up. So I don't know whether this was switched or not. So I'm not gonna preach here that I remember this gig and how it was this and it was that, because I don't actually remember that. So if this did happen, then it was obviously hot on the heels of them having the City of Evil album, and that was actually released this year or in 2005. So I know I didn't comment on it on the album releases, just because I wasn't entirely sure about this gig. So yeah, help me out if you can, guys, if you remember. Okay, so next up is a gig that didn't happen, and this was Disturbed, scheduled to be at the QMU. So that'd have been amazing, seeing them in such a small, intimate venue. However, they actually cancelled the European leg of their tour kind of last minute before this gig due to issues with David Draymond. He had vocal problems or inflammation in the throat. So yeah, it never happened, and myself and Andy turned up, and there was a whole bunch of other people outside the QMU that didn't know what had happened. So yeah, that was rather annoying, because this was obviously before a lot of use of mobile phones, so we didn't have the ability to go on and check and see that the gig had been cancelled. So a Sunday night gig had cancelled. I think we just went for a couple of pints in Ashton Lane and went up the road. Okay, into October, and it sounds like I'm stalking these guys, but I'm not. So we saw Bullet for My Valentine at the garage. £10, eh? That's what you want to pay for gigs. £10. So yeah, more of the same. Obviously the Poison album was out by now, and you played basically mainly tracks from the Poison. So great to see the Bullets again in kind of a small venue, and it wouldn't be long before they were playing bigger venues than this. Okay, into November, and next up is Wednesday 13 at the Glasgow Garage, and that was just £10. So Wednesday 13 was actually Joseph Michael Poole was his real name, and he used to be in a band called the Murder Dolls, which had Joey Jordison of Slipknot in it. And to be honest, this was Andy's choice to go and see this. Like, they weren't a band that I listened to, and I don't really remember this gig or the songs, and it's not really a band that I listen to. So yeah, I've been dragged to quite a few this year that I'm not really been into, so don't know what's going on. I need to just learn to say no. Okay, so 3 days before my birthday, this was my birthday treat, I went to the SECC and what was called the Taste of Chaos. So this was just a new tour that had started up, and it was basically from the creator of the Warped tour that was in the US. So it ran from 2005 until 2010. So it was aimed at putting on like 4 or 5 bands and trying to keep the cost low, and it was promoting sort of up and coming bands. You're not your kind of most popular genres. So it was like, I love the way like they label these types of music as emo, post-hardcore and metalcore. I love when you see all these descriptions of bands, like, what the hell is that? So on this, there was 5 bands. We had Story of the Year, The Used, Killswitch Engage, Rise Against, and headlining it was Funeral for a Friend. So I'm not going to get into too much detail. I mean, I saw Killswitch Engage, and I saw Funeral for a Friend, so it was pretty much the same kind of sets that they played. And yeah, each band was obviously just allotted like a short amount of time, because it wasn't like an all day thing at SECC. From memory, it was like a 6 o'clock showing through to 11 o'clock, so each band was kind of getting, half an hour, 45 minutes. But yeah, good to see 4 or 5 bands for £18.50. That's decent money's worth. Okay, so last up and rounding off the year, I think this is a tribute band, I'm not sure. The Complete Stone Roses. So I think it's a tribute band to the Stone Roses, but the singer's probably better than the Stone Roses, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of this, to be honest. It was a group of guys from work that got together. It was one of them, Andy McLeavy, that suggested we go, and yeah, we went there to see them. And I don't really remember, because I'm not a fan of the band or the songs. I just remember there was like hundreds of plastic cups on the floor at the Carlin Academy, and then afterwards we went to the Cat House nightclub, and I remember Andy being drunk on the way down the stairs, and he kept spilling his drink onto this girl in front of him, and she's like, "You do that again, you're going to get it." And then he did. He didn't mean to, and she turned around and kneed him in the balls. that was a highlight of the night. That was so funny. So yeah, that caps off all the gigs. So sorry I couldn't really remember a lot of them. It is difficult when you're going back so long. Okay folks, so a big thanks if you managed to watch this video all the way through. It does mean a lot to me, because I do put a lot of time and effort into each of these videos, so it's nice to know that people are enjoying the content. So if you are, then if you could give it a thumbs up, that would be really good. And also set your reminders so that you don't miss the next Relive the Music video, which will be about 2006. So in that, I'll be talking about albums by Iron Maiden and Trivium. Can you guess what those albums are? Leave a note in the comments if you think you know what those albums are. And I'll also be talking about gigs that I attended, such as the Almighty a couple of times, Clawfinger, Thursday, Buck Cherry, and also, what about this one? Guns N' Roses with Bullet for My Valentine. Wow. Okay, so I just like to add, if you were at any of these gigs or you saw these bands or artists on tour in Europe or in the world, then let me know. Help me fill in some of the blanks for those concerts which I can't remember. And remember and tune in next week for more gigs that I don't remember. No, but seriously, again, thanks for watching. And if you do want a comment on next week's video, then leave a note in the comments and I will give you a mention and I'll find a graphic for you. Okay, until next time, guys, have a good day.